Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Auf meinen lieben Gott, which translates to In my beloved God. This is a short and fairly straightforward chorale, so we're just going to hop right into it. No key signature. We start on A minor, we end on A minor. I reckon we're in the key of A minor. Beat 1, A, C, E, and A. That's another A minor triad. No need to reanalyze. G sharp, B, E, and B. That's E major over G sharp, which is 5-6. Then we go to A, E, and C. 1-5-6-1's probably the most common introductory progression in all of the chorales. Passing 7th on the bass. F, A, and D. That's D minor in first inversion. And then our cadence is a half cadence, E, B, G sharp, and E. It's a 5 chord. More specifically, this is a Phrygian half cadence, if you care about that sort of thing. It's not super important that you know that, but the half step motion in the bass is common, or it's a shared trait with the Phrygian mode, which is the only mode that really gets use that has a half step between the root, or the I guess the tonic, or like the final of the mode, and the second pitch of the collection. Moving ahead, we have another half cadence in the key of A minor. No modulations here. We have C, C, G, and E, which is a 3 chord. Bit of a deceptive progression here. Passing tone in the bass, E, C, G, and E. That's taking our C major chord and inverting it once, so we'll just change the figured bass. Then we have F sharp and A as passing tones, and here we have F sharp, A, C, and E, which, if we get the whole picture here, that is a 6-7 chord. F sharp, minor 7 flat 5 in root position, and that's a harmonization of the melodic minor scale, which is what we're effectively getting here in the bass. So that's what makes me feel like this is not functioning like a secondary dominant. It'd be kind of interesting if it was. But afterwards we have G sharp, B, B, and D. We can make the argument this is a 7 chord in root position. However, I think this E is a chord tone as well, making this a 5-6-5 chord. 5-6-5 versus 7. I think ultimately it doesn't make a huge difference. They're functioning the same way, both as dominant chords. Afterwards we have A, E, B, and C. This B is a 9/8 suspension over the bass, but A minor is still implied. I think one thing that strengthens the argument, one aspect of this chord being a 5-6-5, is that the 7 resolves the way we would expect, which is down by step. But the leading tone in the bass resolves upwards too. But that's not something that's necessarily true in all 7 chords that are in root position. I'm trying to think if that's actually true. I have to meditate on that to see if that's actually a true statement across the board, or just a general trend. But I'm calling it 5-6-5. That's just what my intuition tells me. And then we have D, F sharp, D, F natural, G sharp, and B. So I think this G sharp is an accent and non-chord tone. It's this A that is our chord tone. So we have D, F, A, and D instead, which is our 4 chord. And then we cadence on 5, E, E, G sharp, and B. Interesting that we had a half cadence here that did not have the 5th of the chord in the melody. And we have a 4 going to 5 here in first inversion, and a 4 in root position going to a 5 here. So it's an interesting pair of phrases. Definitely similarities between them. Our next phrase ends in an imperfect authentic cadence in the key of C major. So we're looking for a point on which we modulate, and I think that's pretty much straight away. We have E major, which is another 5 chord, no need to reanalyze. A, E, A, and C, which is our tonic, A minor. But I think this is also our submediate in the key of C major. We then have B, D, G, and D. That's G major in first inversion, 5-6. And then we go to C major, C, C, G, and E, which is our tonic triad. Sorry, I almost called it 3 because we were in A minor, but no, it is now our tonic. We have a passing 7th on the bass, A, C, A, and E. That is our submediate now, not our tonic, A minor. Passing 7th on the bass. We then have F, C, A, and D. That's D minor 7 over F, 2-6-5. Bach loves 2-6-5 chords. G, B, G, and D. That's G major in root position, our 5 chord, which is what we would expect after a 2-6-5 chord especially, and then we cadence on C major. C, C, G, and E, which is our tonic triad in root position. Okay, looking ahead, we see G sharp here, which might lead us to think that we're going towards A minor, but we're actually not. We get a very fascinating phrase here. We still stay in the key of C major, but we have this ascending bass line that makes us think that we're going towards A, but instead of A, we get this very unusual A flat. I had to go back and correct my notes because just intuition told me that this would be a G sharp, then would go to A, but here it's actually A flat, and then we go back down towards C. So very fascinating A flat here. We'll talk about it when we get to it. We have E, B, G sharp, and E. This is a secondary dominant, 5 of 6, because E is the dominant of A, and A is our 6th chord, but we do not get A afterwards. We get a deceptive progression. We go to F major, which is our 4 chord, and we have seen this progression in the past. 5 of 6 going to 4 is the same thing as saying 5 going to 6 in the key of A minor, but we have not modulated. We're definitely still in the key of C major here. This is just a cheeky progression that Bach uses from time to time. We also have a passing tone in the tenor before we get F sharp, C, A, and D. This is D7 over F sharp. That's 5, 6 of 5, because D is the dominant of G major, or G minor as well, just the dominant of G. And then afterwards we get another really interesting progression. We get G, C, G, and E. I think this C is a 4-3 suspension over the bass, and this is actually E minor over G, which would be 3-6 in the key of C major, but in the key of G major, this would be 5-6-5 going to 6. So I think we have 2 secondary deceptive progressions going on here, which is very interesting. Then our 3 chord takes us to A flat, C, F, and D. This is D minor 7 flat 5 over A flat, which is 2-6-5. This E is a very brief passing tone before we get G, C, G, and E. That's C major over G, 1-6-4, neighbor tone in the bass, G, B, F, and D, which is G7 in root position. And I'm going to use this bracket because it's a habit from classes long ago. And then we have some anticipations in the upper voices, leading us to C major, C, G, E, and C. Looking ahead, we have another phrase that ends in the key of C major, but this time it is a half cadence. Even with this F sharp and these G sharps going on, there's just a lot of chromaticism in this chorale, proportionate to the notes that are diatonic. We have C, C, G, and E, which is another C major chord, just some vocal rotation going on. B, D, G, and G. That is G major over B, another 1-5-6-1 progression, harkening back to the beginning of the chorale, maybe leading us to think that maybe we're in the B section or we're recycling material that we've seen before. C, E, G, and E, our tonic triad, C major, passing tone in the alto before we get G sharp, E, B, and E. Another E major chord, this time it's over G sharp, which is 5-6 of 6, with a passing 7th on the tenor. We then have A, C, A, and E, which is our 6th chord, A minor, with a passing 7th in the bass and a passing tone in the tenor before we get F sharp, A, and D. This is D major over F sharp, which is 5-6 of 5. Another 5-6 of 5 chord following a 5-6 of 6, which is very interesting. And then we get some pretty gnarly counterpoint going on here. So this B is a non-chord tone. This E is a neighbor tone. This C is a non-chord tone. It's a 7th. This G is a non-chord tone. And then when we look here, we have F sharp, C, A, and D, which is just taking our D major chord, adding a 7th and putting it in first inversion again. So we'll just go 7-6-5 here. That's the analysis we'll stick with. Then we have D. This B is a non-chord tone. This F sharp is a chord tone. And we could say that the chord goes to root position here. I think that's the figured bass for it. We have D, we have A, we have F sharp, and we have D. Oh, there's no more 7th in the chord because the B gets rid of it and then it goes down to A. So we can say that this is a just an 8-5-3 at this point for a very brief time, but still it gets implied before we get G major, G, B, G, and D, which is our 5 chord. It feels like our tonic after all that secondary dominance, but I feel like this is a half cadence one because the 5 of the chord is in the melody, and that's typically a hallmark of the half cadence, but also just the melody feels like the D wants to resolve down to C. But moving towards the idea of A minor, we're going to modulate pretty early into the phrase. We have G, B, G, and D, which is another 5 chord with a passing 7th here in the alto before we get C, C, E, and E, which is our tonic triad, C major in root position, and the key of A minor. This is also our 3 chord. We then have D, B, F sharp, and D. This is B major over D, which is another secondary dominant, 5-6 of 5, because B is the dominant of E, and E is our 5 in this case. We have some passing tones going on in the bass and the alto before we get E, B, G sharp, and D, which is a passing E7 chord in root position. Going towards our cadence, we have F, A, and C, which is another deceptive cadence. Bach has definitely utilized a lot of deceptive cadences in this chorale, especially making, a phrase out of the idea of the deceptive cadence using secondary dominance in the middle of the chorale. But F major is our 6th chord. This C is a chord tone. We then have E, F, A, and D. This E is an accented non-chord tone. We have D, F, A, and D, which is D minor in root position. That is our 4 chord. We then have E, E, A, and B. This A is a 4-3 suspension over the bass. This is, of course, implying a 5 chord. We get the resolution on the next beat, and we get a delayed passing 7th here before our final cadential chord, which is A major. Bach often ends his chorales, his minor chorales, that is, with the Picardy third, and I imagine he does that to leave the last note as one that is more pleasant to listen to, or not necessarily more pleasant to listen to. Minor can be very pleasant to listen to. I need to be careful with the language that I use. More uplifting, more joyous, more a happier tone to end the work on, because the chorale is often the last movement of the work. But that's going to conclude today's analysis. All in all, fairly straightforward. The secondary dominants here, I guess you could go and say that you have little micro modulations going on, one to A and one to G, but I don't really feel like you need to go to those lengths. I feel like the deceptive nature of the chords, along with this A flat, gives it a very foreign feel, and I feel like that's what Bach was going for, so the analysis reflects that with some wonky chord changes. I don't think we've seen 5-6 of 5 go to 3 yet in the chorales, at least I haven't analyzed any chords that way, so definitely very fascinating to encounter that. But if you are interested in following me along on this journey to analyze all of Bach's chorale harmonizations, feel free to subscribe to the channel and feel free to hit the notification icon. You'll get notified of when my daily upload goes live, and you will get your fix of Bach and analysis for the day. You'll find both of those things here with the content that I am producing as of now. And this is episode 216. There's, more than 200 and almost 20 chorales left to analyze, so lots of content left in the pipeline, and I would love to have you along for the journey. But on that note, relatively short chorale today. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for supporting the channel by doing so. I look forward to tomorrow's analysis, and I hope you take care.